Now share.
All right. Can everybody see that? Everybody see that? Okay. I'm going to talk about task 2 tonight, and I want you to forgive me if I'm insulting your intelligence, because I spent most of today and yesterday going through your papers, and I'm seeing a common error among some of the papers, and I want to get this cleared up, okay, before we go any further. So I'm taking our task 2 in baby steps. Some of you already know what I'm going to talk about. So don't be insulted if I'm thinking, if you're thinking I already know this. Well, I'm talking from my perspective as your coach that has seen some things in your papers that we need to get corrected. And you might be surprised what some of those things are. Okay, here's the elements of task 2, okay? Copy and paste your first page of your task 2 from your templates. Believe it or not, some folks are not doing that. Insert your name on the spot, your name here. Some folks are not doing that. Copy and paste your task 1 description. Copy and paste your instructions. This is very simple, okay? Now, this is a part that some of us are leaving out. Some of you are going right into your background of your school and your community, and you're not giving an opening sentence. So you need to have this sentence. So I want you to copy the sentence, background information about school and community. Put that in there as well. Now, I want you to add your narrative from task 1 on your school profile. Basically, you just got to copy and paste. It's the same thing as you did in task 1. Okay? So make sure that gets in there. And then you copy your prompt 1 from your template. Are there any questions on that one? Okay? Now, when you do your prompt 1, you are right now beginning to build a narrative under each of the 5 best practices for teacher empowerment. You've got your subheading. Let me get to that real quick. I had it here a minute ago. You've got your building efficacy and empowerment among staff. That's one of your first headings. Some of you, and it's okay to do this, y'all, but some of you are taking some of these 5 practices out of the narrative, and you're going to do a different way. You're not putting them in order, and that's okay. It's sometimes a little confusing to me until I find out what I'm looking for. But the best thing to do is to take your first best practice, which is building efficacy and empowerment among staff, and then you're going to build a narrative underneath that subtitle. Okay, and you go from a page and a half to a half page, but you should have at least 3 to 5 pages when you finish. And you should have a narrative. You should have a citation for each paragraph that you have. You're putting a lot of information in there, and you're not giving credit for where you got it from. Okay, so you need to make sure for every paragraph you have, you should have a citation or at least one citation under each narrative for each practice. Okay. Some of you are getting away from your AP format. I'm finding some of your fonts are different fonts than 12. I'm seeing 14s and 16s. So you need to make sure you're going by that. Y'all, I'm seeing this as well. I'm seeing some bias in your papers, and this is a normal thing that can happen with new writers. And you folks, you're new professional writers, because you're teachers and you want to fix things. That's just who you are. You want to make things better. Well, we can't always do that in professional writing. And these are things I'm seeing. You make comments like, well, this is the way it should be, or this is the way that I feel. Then you go around and say, this is what the candidate sees that needs to be done. You can't do that, okay? And you're probably right. But you've got to picture yourself, as I've mentioned before, you're like a TV reporter, and you're simply reporting what is happening out here. In this case, you're reporting on what the research is telling us. You're simply reporting what your authors are saying. You are totally out of the picture. You are totally removing yourself from your narratives. You're outside reporting in. So you've got to keep yourself out of the picture. You got to keep your feelings out of it. You got to keep your thoughts out of it. You simply are reporting what your authors are telling you. So instead of saying, this is how I feel, this is the way it should be, you can say, according to the author or according to the findings, this is what you need. This is how you need to approach this. You can never say, this is what I think. This is what we need to do. And we're still doing that, but you're going to have to get away from that, okay? That has been a common fiber of the narratives I have read and in the papers I've written, both in Task 1 and Task 2. Now, when you're citing references, here again, we're still, some of you have got this down pat, some of you are still a little confused about when you're citing a narrative that's a direct quote versus just some information that you picked up in your study. And I've given you the model. Now, folks, I sent you a PowerPoint a couple of weeks ago, and I've given you an outline of how things should be documented. Follow that model. You've also got your handbook, okay? But when you're citing references, you have the author and the date. Now, when you're going in a direct quote, you have the author, the page number, and the date. Some of you are getting those two confused. This is what I'm seeing so far. Some of you have put in a direct quote without a page reference, and some of you have put a page number when you don't have a direct quote. So you want to make sure anytime you have something in parentheses, you have the author, the page number, and the date, okay? And that should be cited right after you get that, right after you make that quote. And here's another thing, folks. Do not use a lot of quotes. That really shows weaknesses in your research. And you know, I read a dissertation one year where basically the whole chapter 2 was nothing but quote after quote after quote. There's no element for interpretation, you know, as a professional writer. So you've got to make sure that when you are having a direct quote from an author, that you cite the page numbers. And when you don't have a direct quote, you don't have to cite the page numbers. I'm going to make sure we get that down because I'm still seeing a lot. Here's a good point here. When you paraphrase up to 4 sentences, then you want to come full circle and make references to the author again. That's always a good rule of thumb. Now, the reference page, still seeing some areas that we still need to polish. Okay. Each reference is indented 5 spaces. Okay, that should be a given. That goes with the model I sent you. Each reference is single spaced. Okay, you put all your references together right here. Okay. Now, while each reference is single spaced, each reference is double spaced between each other. So you got a single space for your references and double space between them. Now, when you begin to cite articles, okay, the articles are in italics. And when you cite books, they are not in italics. You simply use the title of the book, okay? If you read the last comment here, you capitalize the words in the title of the book. It references nouns, pronouns, adjectives, and so forth. Okay? All right, I think, all right, are there any questions? We've got a good amount of time. I went through that pretty quickly. Are there any questions about any of your writings at this point in time? I'm not here.
Oh, yeah, I have one, Dr. Pickard.
I'm sorry?
I have one.
Who was this?
Just like I was making that's William Sanders.
Hey, William, welcome aboard, buddy.
Hey, good. I was making reference to,
go ahead.
Yes, I was making reference to my AAPTEL that I did for 601. And what I found, if nothing's changed, the appendix, because I have some charts and graphs that go along with the task 2. Okay. We definitely put those before the works cited page, correct?
Say that again, William. I'm not following. Go ahead.
The appendices, because I have some charts and graphs that I was going to put in task 2, so far as the practices that we just did. And I wanted to make sure that was put in before the works cited page at the end.
Your charts and graphs comes after you do your narratives on your data. Okay.
Right.
And afterwards, in other words, when you approach each of the five, the five best practices, and you do your narrative, and you're citing your data, you're citing what your findings were, your percentages were. Okay. For example, let's say that in your data analysis, you found out that 60% of your faculty have no input on school decisions. Okay?
Right.
40% said that they do. Now, you've got a big way you could go with that. Okay, agree, partially agree, don't agree, disagree, and all this stuff. There's a way you've got a big spectrum of how you want to approach that. But once you get, you've got to cite your narrative with your data, because your charts and graphs comes in prompt 2. Okay.
Right.
Make sense? You've got to have before you have your data. You can talk about your data. You can talk about your percentages, William. And you're talking about your findings, okay, under each category. And then in prompt 2, that's when you put your graphs and your charts together and show how you're doing visuals that's connecting your narrative with your charts and graphs. With your narrative.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Dr. Pickard, I do have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
For prompt 2, what I did was I used SurveyMonkey for the survey for this school, and I screenshotted each question, and it kind of comes with a graph. Is it okay to embed that in the narrative part and then put some description and some some discussion points underneath the findings for the screenshot for each question that I asked?
All right, see if I'm hearing you correctly. Okay. Excuse me.
With more than 140 channels, including local channels, for only $39.
I thought my wife was going to get that, and she disappeared on me. All right. Would you mind saying that again?
Yeah, I'm sorry. So,
okay,
so I used SurveyMonkey for the survey to do the staff. Mind you, I actually got in trouble for sending it out to the entire staff. That's neither here nor there. So what I did was I screenshotted each question, and it showed the percentage for each answer choice: agree, strongly agree, disagree.
That's your spectrum. Yeah.
Okay. So is it okay if I screenshot each question, put it under the appropriate subheading, and then kind of describe or do the narrative underneath the screenshot of each question?
I'm pondering that. I'm thinking we need to follow the outline given to us in our templates.
Okay.
I'm really thinking we need to stick with our narratives first.
Okay. So leave out the chart where it shows each answer response and the percentage, and just actually talk about that instead.
You're doing it both ways. You're going to talk about your narrative. You're going to talk about your findings. Okay. Let's say, for example, let me just try to think of one I had today here. Teachers have input on the school improvement plan.
Mm-hmm.
Agree, disagree, neutral, strongly disagree, and so forth. Okay. Then you're going to talk about that percentages. You're going to lay out a narrative with that percentage involved in that. Okay. Then what you're going to do, now that you've got your verbal picture, okay, and you've got your data cited, then you're going to come down here in the next part in prompt 2, and you can put together your charts and graphs. Now you're going to keep your same subtitle here. You're going to bring that subtitle down here to make sure that your data matches your title, what you're talking about. If you don't, we're going to get confused about what graph goes with what data. So you want to, when you talk about question 1, make sure when you get your narrative together, you come down here when you chart your graphs, make sure your first graph matches your data from question 1.
Right.
With me?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Does that make sense?
Yep.
All right. Good. Anybody else? Is that, I mean, we all clear on this? Everybody okay with this? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I've got to ask this question. Dr. Sumner, how are you doing? You okay?
I'm getting there, and I know several of you on here have been in the same place, so it stinks, and it'll turn you into a germaphobe. So everybody keep a lot of hand sanitizer around. If you're not with the ranks of the rest of us in class, then use that hand sanitizer.
Yeah, everywhere. Just put it everywhere.
Yeah, pretty much when I wear a hazmat suit when I leave the house. So thank you for asking.
I know how you doing. We're all worried about you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, folks. Anybody else have any questions? All right. I have read, I think at this point, I've had 3 papers on task 2, and I've had 1 resubmission on task 1. We're going to keep polishing this baby up, okay? We are going to keep polishing this thing up. We're going to keep going and keep going and keep going, because I talked to your evaluators last night. We had a meeting last night. Talked to your evaluators last night, and when they get your polished paper, they're going to go right by the rubric right here in our templates, okay? And they're going step by step by step. And the last thing we want to do is to confuse them. So if they're looking for A, we're going to make sure we show them A. If they're looking for B, we're going to make sure we show them B. If they're looking for C, we're not going to say, okay, well, they go back to A. We don't want to do that, okay? We want to make sure we've got a clear path, okay, on exactly how we're putting every piece of this together. So right now, you have done, for task 2, you've done your lit review. You pulled your data together. You're following the 5 best practices. You've looked at your school, and you're putting together a survey. The SurveyMonkey is a really, really good tool to use. Okay, so you're putting that together. So you basically now you have a pretty clear picture, or you should have, when we finish with task 2 with the power model, of where your school stands versus where they should be.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to be taking this information, and it doesn't tell you to do that right now, but you will eventually. You will take this information and you will present it to your leadership teams, so y'all can begin to put together an action plan how you can close that gap between teacher empowerment, what you do in your school, versus what 21st Century says we need to be doing at school. But I've got to say this without hesitation. Some of you are doing a fantastic job. Your authors are good. Your research is solid. The mechanics on our writing really need to be polished up to some degree. But the overall thrust of what you're doing is really, really, really good. So, Dr. Sumner, I don't know what you do in your class, but take a bow for that, because you've got some good writers here. Okay, I've got some time left, about 10 minutes, and I want to go to another topic. Does anybody have any questions about task 2?
I don't have any questions about task 2, but I do have a quick question.
All right, Josh, go ahead.
While I have Dr. Sumner here, I was just looking through and I saw you had updated the question for the answer number D, and I just saw that. That was for this past week, correct?
I'm throwing out that question either way. Like, I'm not penalizing anybody for that, because that was on me to not have finished typing out the rest of the response. So yeah, nobody will be penalized for that one. I just won't count it at all.
Thank you.
I'm glad you asked. Thanks.
I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're good. All right, any other questions? Let me back up here real quick. Task 2, we got laid out for you. Prompt 1, I've got laid out for you. Narratives, we got laid out. Reference page, we got laid out. Anything else about either one of these? Are we ready to move forward?
I have one.
Yes, sir.
Just about these surveys again and how we gather data. Our administration changed over the last year and a half, and we got a new academic coordinator, intervention specialist. So my question is, I did a lot of legwork with our intervention specialist and one of our APs. So I mentioned our conversation. So is that adequate enough evidence along with my charts and graphs to show it the data that I took? My talking with them and my charts and graphs.
Well, your charts and graphs should follow suit from your narratives. Have you put your narratives together?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, then you should be okay. Your narratives, William, are supposed to match your data. Okay.
Okay. And they were very objective. So okay.
You should have five good narratives with each subheading of the best practices leading that, and you're supposed to be taking a look at. Okay, it says I got 10 minutes left. Okay, you should be looking at that because your data and your references, your data and your charts and graphs, they have to match up. Okay?
Right.
They've got to match up. But are you getting it, William? Are you getting a clear picture on where your school is in relation to teacher empowerment and the models you're seeing in your research?
Yeah, yes, Dr. Pickering, is very eye-opening. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. You feel good about that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I spoke with Dr. Lamb last night, and I apologize for the confusion, but you're with us, my friend. And I told Dr. Lamb, I said, he's already gotten familiar with us, and I don't want to move him because you're supposed to be in another group. But so he said, okay, you've got Mr. Sanders, so we've got you. So you're ours.
All right, and Dr. Stedman is still my clinical 2 coach, correct?
I'm sorry?
Dr. Stedman is still my clinical 2 coach, what I saw.
Yes, he should be. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Wait a minute. Let me back that up here. No. I'm your clinical 2 coach.
Okay.
You're not Dr. Stedman. So he checked his, I'm sorry, I had to process that for a minute. No, you're not with him at all. You're with me. I'm your clinical 2 coach. Now, do you understand, William, about the difference between Coach 1 and Coach 2? The Coach 1 comes
right. Yes.
Okay. All right. But no, you're with me. You're with me.
All right.
I'll be working together the rest of the semester. So, but you let me know if there's issues, and we can make a visit and we can talk about some things you may have some concerns with. But do you know who your clinical coach 1 is? Who comes to your school?
Yeah, Mr. Ramsey did. Yes, sir.
Okay, Dr. Ramsey did. All right, you're good.
Yes.
You're good.
All right, thanks.
Okay, one last time. Are there any other questions about the reference, about any element of task 2 before I leave it? Okay, now, the one thing that I wish we would teach in our program are Todd Whitaker's key points on what great principals do. Now, I'm going to share this with you. I'm going to continue on. This is chapter 4. Now, as I mentioned before, there's no academic component tied with this. This is just for your information because you're not going to get this anywhere else. But one of the things that Dr. Whitaker has talked about is if you want to improve your schools, you have to improve your schools by improving your teachers or hiring the best teachers. He goes on to say the average principals want to hire teachers that are a good fit. Well, that's not going to work, especially if your school's a failing school. Do you want your teacher to fit into a program where your schools are failing? He says good principals go in the opposite direction, that they hire dynamic teachers and the teachers will follow their lead to improve their school. Now, he says, well, what do you look for in hiring good teachers? Great principals look for exceptional teachers in the classroom. Okay? You look for teachers that will lead students, but also lead their peers. Okay? They're looking for enthusiasm. Okay? And they realize that if their budgets don't allow them to help improve their teachers by giving the resources they need, then they will go out and find ways to improvise to help improve their staff to keep them motivated. He goes on to talk about that new teachers are really excited to be on board and become a teacher, get their first classroom. We've all been there, okay? But he also wants to say this: how do we keep that enthusiasm going?
Right.
Now, he goes on to talk about this chapter, you hire talent. Well, what exactly does that mean? He says, keep in mind that because a teacher has advanced degrees does not mean that they're great teachers. We all know great teachers that have advanced degrees that are poor teachers. He said this, he basically put it into a nutshell. Hire teachers who have a love for students. Hire teachers who have an inquisitive mind. Research shows that teachers who are constantly inquiring about things are also the most creative. Hire teachers with a positive attitude. Hire teachers with a strong work ethic, a congenial personality. They have leadership skills and they have charisma. And he goes on to say, and I'm going to get ahead of myself, he said, you can take all these components and put it together into an interview process. So when you begin to interview your teachers for positions and you know what you're looking for, you can wrap this around the interview process. Let's see, I'm going okay. He talks about a story about, and he gives an example here about a job offer. He talks about a dialogue he had with a prominent teacher. And he says, I'm looking to add teachers, and this is a quote, he says, I'm looking to add teachers who want to be a part of the best school in the United States. He said, I want new teachers to speak up at faculty meetings, if you're so inclined. I want to welcome your ideas. I want to bring you on board. I want to hear about your ideas. I value you. He says, the thing he wants to emphasize is there's no pecking order in the school, you know, and we all have seen this in the schools we work at from time to time. There's a pecking order. Veteran teachers have priority over new teachers. And he says in his book, that's not the case. Okay? He says he wants to empower teachers from day one. And this is exactly what our task 2 is about. He lets teachers know from the very beginning in their interview process that they are empowered from day one. And he talks about how teachers have respecting for that, and they go back and they talk about that. He says, now, during the interview of a strong candidate, let's say, for example, a high school science teacher, he talks about the scenario. He says, now, suppose I put you with a teacher that is, let's say, that likes to leave early, and they come in late, and they do just a little to get by with. And he says, and you see that happening, that's a role model for you as a new teacher. What would you do? And he talks about right then, he's setting the groundwork right there. He's helping them see, okay, who is going to be your professional role models at your new school? And he helps them see this. He says, if you see it happening, would you follow suit? Would that be something you were tempted to do? And of course, if they're smart, they say, no, that's not what I want to do. And then he goes to tell them through the end of the year, through the course of the year, he goes back to them and says, do you have any idea why I asked you that question at the interview process? He says, now you set the mark, just like every good principal does. They set the benchmark. They set the goals before them. They set the school on the path as to where they're going to be successful in the year. Everybody knows what's coming. Everybody knows what's expected of them. They're setting the standards high. Okay? And he's doing the same thing in an interview process. And this all goes with about the hiring process. All right, I'm going to get off of here, but I want to leave you one more thing. I want to talk about, very quickly, traits of school leaders who fail. And I want you to see this. And he says, these are principals that have failed in their position as school leaders. This is what they have done. They stay insensitive to others. They're arrogant. They're aloof. They betray people's trust. They stay focused on only what they want and not what the faculty wants or needs. They ignore issues or concerns within among their staff. They assume they know everything. They do not delegate. They take control. They're thinking their way is the only way, and they're unwilling to change even when they know it's best for their school. This is research, folks. So I found this the other day, and I thought I'll put this in here with this last chapter. These are traits of school leaders who fail. So these are things that you might want to keep in mind. So in closing tonight, Dr. Whitaker talks about that we hire teachers, the best teachers we can, and that's the only way we can improve our school. Okay, I've had that extra piece tonight. Anybody have any questions about what we talked about tonight? Anything, any of your concerns you have? I'm still looking forward to getting your papers. and I hope you will send them my way. I will let you know that the reason some of you don't get the papers back immediately is because I take an average of 2 to 2.5 hours to grade each paper. If you've seen my feedback, you know that's the case. So get it to me, and I'll try to get it back to you within 24 to 48 hours. Dr. Sumner, do you have anything you want to add? Okay. Folks, appreciate your help. If you need me for anything, Dr. Sumner for anything, call us, get in touch with us, email us. We'll be here for you. If you need a school visit, let me know, and we'll make arrangements, okay?